All right, so now let's look at a counter-argument in the form of Frank's dependency theory. Now remember, dependency means one thing relies on another thing. The students are dependent on the teacher. So it kind of alludes to this idea of power. Where does power lie and where does it not lie? And so Rostow says that the global economy, which I've kind of used as a circle here, so this is a global economy, it has a periphery, edge, and it has a core. Now, at the core, you find a much higher concentration of economic activity, okay, of economic development, okay? And in terms of the global economy, the periphery is where we find much less economic activity. So these are two key words that you really need to be comfortable with: core and periphery. And so we're starting to see where this idea of dependency might come from. Where is the power? So at the core of the global economy is your superpower. And the superpowers change over time, but currently it is the USA. But inside this core is not just our superpower. We'll have countries like the UK, like Japan, like France, etc. Okay? These are the real key core countries controlling the global economy, according to Frank. Now, on the outskirts, we have countries like Chad in Central Africa, Malawi, in Sub-Saharan Africa, maybe Myanmar in Southeast Asia, okay? So we have this idea of countries where there's not much economic activity, they don't have much wealth, whilst the core kind of holds it all central. Sometimes, not always, we have a semi-periphery. So if you're thinking about your language from your GCSEs, you've got developing, emerging, and developed. Okay, well, so how does this happen? We didn't just wake up one day and suddenly these countries are rich and these countries are poor. No, it's developed over many, many years and through what Frank would say was a intentional system. But what is that system? So, Rostow would argue that there is a flow. Now remember, flow means to move from one place to another. Okay, there is a flow of resources from the periphery into the core. Now, what is a resource? Now, remember, a resource is a naturally occurring material that humans can't really make, but is valuable to them. Okay? So, the example I'm going to use, and it kind of is a bit dated now because you can make diamonds, but we're going to use diamonds. Throughout human history, diamonds have been dug up in the ground all over the world. Particularly, Africa and South Africa are famous for it, okay? But raw diamonds, nobody wants. You have to process a raw diamond. So here is an image of a raw diamond, okay? It's cool, but it's not exactly jewelry, is it? You wouldn't want to walk around with that on your neck. And so what happens is the core countries will buy these resources, okay? Or sometimes they will colonize them and they will just take them and they will process them. Because they're advanced economies, they have industrial processes. How do you cut a diamond? A diamond is the world's hardest substance. How do you cut the world's hardest substance? The answer is you use a diamond sword blade to cut the diamond. Those are expensive, okay? Highly skilled, large amounts of money needed to do that. So in come the raw diamonds, and then what happens is out of the core flows goods. So that diamond is now a diamond ring, okay? And we all know that everybody wants diamonds, okay? Look at the product. Yep, it's gone from quite an ugly thing to something that has huge amounts of demand. And so these raw materials will flow into the semi-periphery. You know, someone gets married in Chad who's got money, and someone from Chad is literally buying back Chad's resources at 10 times the price. That small little diamond that was rough cut that they sold for $300 is now worth $50,000. Okay? And as a result, even the few pieces of money that are in the periphery, they are hoovered up and they are absorbed by the core. And it's this relationship, this dependency that Frank believed created this global inequality, okay? Where periphery nations have their resources absorbed, the core nations process them and sell them back to the periphery at huge profits. And so if we just before I kind of finish, Frank, if we look through history, talked about two examples of kind of how this relationship took place. The first was colonization. Here is an image of James Cook discovering, if you will, in brackets, discovering Australia. And then they kind of take the resources from there, often through violence and through superior military. And then the more modern way this is done, through neo-colonialization, which is kind of transnational corporations doing it. Here's an example, being a McDonald's. I think McDonald's operates in over 100 countries now. And all that profit goes back to America. Every time someone in Vietnam walks into a McDonald's and buys it, a percentage of that profit goes to the core, okay? And that's really it.